In this video tutorial, we're going to be reviewing the Workflow in Mothernode CRM Enterprise Edition. And this is the most complete edition that we offer in our family of editions. Now, this is going to be a very generalized workflow process that we're going to be reviewing with you. So if you're new to the program or evaluating a CRM solution for your business, this is going to give you a general understanding of Mothernode's workflow capabilities, specifically from the sales process all the way to invoicing and everything that happens in between. Now, this is going to be a 30,000 foot view of the workflow process, and I'm going to be taking you through a few scenarios. I will not be covering the production process in this because that alone is a video by itself. It's very comprehensive. However, there are two workflows that you can use within your Mothernode account. You can combine them. Some workflows can be for production, meaning manufacturing. Others are basically just lighter methods, producing goods and services from inventory or buying those out with different vendors that don't require you to have any manufacturing. Again, you can mix and match. Now, there's a lot of things that we won't be touching on, but you can see here there's a variety of different features and functionality that benefits every user. There's modules that we won't be including this, like that have to do with marketing, as well as inventory management and so on. So in those cases, we have other videos. You can check those out on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Mothernode, or you can visit our website at mothernode.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can give you a deeper dive into some of these functions and features if they're not accessible to you already online. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to be looking at, and it's going to be the top enterprise workflow that doesn't include production. So this is basically going to cover sales, project management, or account management, depending on how you define it, and then of course how we get into accounting. So we're going to take this from quote through to an order, ship it, and then invoice it and bring it into QuickBooks or Xero, whatever it is you're going to be using. Okay, we'll understand those processes. Then we're going to repeat this step again, and what we'll be doing is adding some more functionality or some more features where we create purchase orders or work orders off of our sales orders and such, do some partial shipments, rejoin those shipments back together to make a single invoice. Okay, so we'll be talking about that as we go through. So let's get started. All right, before we get going with any transactions, let's just get our bearings in the program and the kind of screens we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at records and we're going to be looking at listing screens. This is an example of a listing screen that we see for our customers. So if I were to go to orders as an example, I would see a listing screen. If I were to go to quotes, I would see a listing screen. So what I'm looking at when I look at quotes is all of my open quotes by default. And you can see my numbers span across the top, and you can see all the statuses here for open, and we have our transaction numbers off to the side and our totals over here. Okay, customer information in the middle. Pretty much the same as we see with orders, so we can get familiar very quickly. Okay. Now, another useful benefit when you're working within Mothernode is you can filter on information. So for instance, if I want to start looking for a specific customer's orders, I can just start typing their name, and then down below all of Banana Park's orders will appear. Okay, and regardless of the status, so I can see the completed ones here open as well. Okay, same thing applies to any other module, invoices, quotes, and such. If I want to search for an order number, I can do that here, and then when I do that, it says 373. I pulled that up. Now what's really nice about this is that when I leave the screen, so I'm going to go to another module. So I'm in quotes. Now I'm going to come back to orders again. It still remembers my previous search. Okay, so if I want to clear that, I just click clear, and now it resets to my defaults for this screen. A few other things to note: you can complete some advanced searches here. You can make your searches as comprehensive or as basic as you want them to be, and then you can save these searches and they'll be available over here, so you can pull them up. Let's just say newest orders past 7 days, and now it'll show me that I have 3 orders in the past 7 days with those totals across the top. Okay, so you have these nice advanced search features that you can call up anytime when you save your searches. Furthermore, you also have the ability to create custom reports, and you can also save custom reports. So custom reports allow you to give it a name in the first step. Second step is choose the fields that you want to have. So if I want to have these over here moved along, then I can total them, I can sort them, I can do whatever I want. I can drag and drop the order in which they're being presented. Then over here I have the criteria where I can add an advanced search. So I just want to see year-to-date activity, month-to-date activity, activity for a certain project manager or rep, my own, so on and so forth. So you have those abilities. And then over here you also have report automation, which allows you to have Mothernode automatically generate these reports at any interval that you would like, and then it will send them to you or whoever it needs to send them to. These features that I just described are available in every single module. So accountants have access to this in the invoicing module. They can produce these kind of automated reports or these searches on invoices that they're looking for. You can do that with purchase orders, installation work orders, sales orders, and so on and so on. Okay? All right, so let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to look for one of my customers that we're going to work with. Now, to begin this process, you either have to have an existing customer account or an opportunity that you're working with to produce a quote. In this first example, I'm going to cover quotes, and I'm going to build a quote to move forward to bring this into an order, ship it, and ultimately make it an invoice. In the subsequent examples, I'll just be duplicating the original order that we make and then working off of that to show you different examples, okay? All right, so over here what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my customer, Banana Park, and as I start typing again, Banana Park appears. So I'm going to click on Banana Park over here, and this is what a customer profile traditionally looks like, okay? Down below, I have all of their transactions. Everything I'm doing with this customer is accessible right from this screen, okay? So over here, for instance, they have 181 quotes, they have 70 orders, 50 invoices, and so on and so on. Any bought out items that I have for this customer via POs or installation work orders or deposits and how much has been shipped, etc., is all available here as well. All of my customer notes are down the side, and I have my latest transactions of any emails that were sent and so on and so forth to this customer. So what I'm going to do here is I want to go over here and create a brand new quote. Now, creating the quote from the customer has an advantage of actually bringing in all of the customer specific parameters over that matter to them. So for instance, if they have special lead times or special pricing levels, etc., that's all applied within the actual customer itself, and then that information comes into the quote. So the quote is adhering to the relationship parameters that you have with this customer. In this instance, the customer has more than one location. So I'm going to click on the Dallas facility, and this is the one that we're going to make the quote for. All right. It takes me to the quote header. Now there's a lot of things that I can be doing here, but there's a lot of things that I don't have to do. First of all, I do want to make sure that I have a project manager on staff that I'm going to be using for this particular location. And then down over here, I can put in estimated close dates, estimated invoice dates, and so on. Pay attention to some of these because these actually help you with forecasting. So there's a lot of people that rely on money dropping in at certain times throughout the year that they want to make sure that when they run reports for quotes, they want to see what potentially can be closing, and that's how they stay on top of this. So estimated close date, estimated invoice date, I would suggest you're always putting something in, okay? All right, there's a couple of other things down below that this is a tax exempt account. So there's no tax rate being used, okay? So if this is not tax exempt, then it will pull the tax exempt based on the customer's tax parameters. That could be either their billing shipping address, or the billing address, or their shipping address, or your shipping address or billing address, okay? You have a variety of different parameters that you can work from. All right, in this case over here, all of this is pulling directly from the customer. There's some things that are not set, that's perfectly fine, but if I want to put whatever the shipping information is going to be, the lead times for this particular order, I can change that and so on, okay? All right, so we're good there. If I need to make any notes, down below I have the ability to create some notes, which is beneficial if you're going to be working with some other folks on your team that are going to be pricing or participating in the pricing process for building this quote. So you can do a back and forth, create a note, tie somebody else to it as an example. So for instance, if I want to create a note, pricing assistance needed, okay, and then what I can do is I can just say tag the user Allison Honeycutt on my team, okay, and say, can you all right, so I have that here, okay. All right, within my workflow, she's now going to get a notification via email or within the application where she's going to be alerted to the fact that I need her to take a look at this and she needs to put her eyes on it and then give her blessing is to say this pricing is correct and we're all good to go, okay? All right, again, shipping information and other information off this side here. This is where it's going. This is tagged directly with the customer. So in this specific instance, all I really want to do in this case is identify what this quote is for. So in this instance over here, what I want to do is I want to click Save, and now I'm reviewing the quote as I normally would when I land on it at this point, okay? So very, very beneficial to see what this is going to look like. I see my important information across the top. More importantly, my numbers are across the top, so I don't have to scroll down to see anything, and then I can click on the quote entry to see the details. Now, one thing you're going to note immediately is that I already have a balance on this quote of $100. So why is that? Well, when I click on my quote entry, whereas I add my line items, then you're going to see that installation as a line item has already been added. Now, it may not be the right number of hours, but this is something that, let's just say that 80% of my quotes are actually going to be using installation. So I just want to have them added. If I don't need it, of course, I can just go ahead and remove it, okay? So I can do that. Now you can see off to the side what I'm looking at when I see my line items. I have here, it's item 1. It shows me the product and the details. And then over here, I have all of my information off to the side. Now, by the way, during this demonstration, I'm spending a little bit more time showing you this in quotes because this is going to be consistent in orders, POs, work orders, invoices, and so on. So I don't have to repeat this process. What you're seeing right now on screen is relevant everywhere else, okay? So a couple of things that I can do here is that I can edit this, I can duplicate it, I can remove it, but I can also add a note, okay? So for instance, if I'm going to be using a third party to do my installation for me, I can add the note, I can make a reference, okay? All right, and then I can choose a vendor, and in this case, I'll continuously use my Acme Corp, and then over here I'll say, all right, now if I include in print, the customer will see this. So that's up to you as to whether or not you want to make line item notes visible to customers. They may have to have certain circumstances where there's certain exceptions. Hey, buy now, or the price is going up by the end of this month, etc. But over here, what I can do is I want to keep this internal, so I'm not going to check this box. And when I do this, what you'll note is that down below in this quote, I can now see that Acme Corp was the one who provided me this service or this pricing for this, okay? So this note is going to be visible right here, okay? Now, when it comes to adding items, there's a couple of things you can do. Number one, there's Freeform. Freeform allows us to add anything we want. It's not an inventory, it's not a product that we offer, it's maybe not something that we include as a standard item, but I just want to put this information in here. I can have a quantity, I can put my unit of measure, I have my unit cost and my markup. So let's just go through one of these, and then I'm going to actually remove it and show you that process of just deleting this item, okay? Sample item, quantity 10. I have the ability over here for each. The unit cost is going to be $50. Now, my markup, I can put whatever I want. My discount count, I put whatever I want, okay? I would not suggest as a best practice to do a markup and a discount unless you actually have to. If you're using an inventory product, you can discount it from there, but if it's a free form, I would just alter the markup accordingly, okay? It's just easier to keep track of. Now, the other thing you can also do is if you're not sure what to sell it for, you can always use the pricing calculator and just say, well, what's the desired price? What do you want to sell this for? Because right now it's $500 at your cost. So let's just say I want to put $1,500. I say calculate and automatically puts the markup in here for me, okay? Or $15,000 in this case for the extended price. All right, so you can see here that's what the markup on this is, and I can put in a description, sample, etc. Okay. Now I can save and add something else, or I can save and close. I'm just going to hit save and close. All right. Okay, great. So now I have my sample over here that I've added. Now in this case, I want to remove this. I'm not happy with it. Okay, so I'm just going to do that and click remove, and that's how you remove something. All right, the next thing we're going to search on is inventory. We want to go ahead and we want to add an inventory item to this quote. Now, to be clear on this, inventory doesn't have to be a product or a good that you stock. It could be something that you produce. The reason why you'd put that in inventory is because you want to have a quick way to constantly add it to new quotes and orders. So it typically would see people doing this for long-lasting relationships or big accounts that they have where they're constantly servicing this customer with routine fabricated items that they don't want to have to go through the process of building again. They just pull it from inventory, and then when it finally gets produced, they use the production specs based on that inventory item to produce it. Now, obviously, inventory works with traditional inventory as well. So if you have parts and pieces that you're constantly replenishing to customers, you can go ahead and you can do that as well and put that in here. There's a variety of different things you can do with inventory. I'm not going to be covering inventory in this in its complete form within this tutorial, but we'll add something here. So for instance, let's add some virtual inventory, and I have some products here that I want to choose from, and you can see here that I have these different inventory items that are actually to be fabricated. I don't really have any attic stock for these. They're to be fabricated, but I want to put these in because they're a project that I'm working on. So I'm going to add a couple of these at the same time. I'm going to add 50 of these, 12 of these, and let's do 5 of these and 4 of these. Okay, so I've added all of these at the same time. Now I can also just check this box and it'll show me what Banana Park had purchased in the past, so the inventory that's assigned to them. So I can do that, pull up their exclusive inventory. So if I start searching for specific types of products, I'm not seeing all these different products that don't adhere to what Banana Park is interested in. Okay, so I can do that here. All right, I'm just going to hit save and close. You can also see some stock levels over here. Again, this is a demo account, so a lot of this is very hokey, but you get the idea. If you're stocking inventory, you can ultimately see what you have available, what's been committed already, and that gives you an idea of what it is that you should be looking at to purchase in the future if you have to replenish some stocks, okay? All right, let's save and add. And now we've just added these items to our sign types, okay? All right, so another thing I want to do here is just for the sake of use, so I just want to, or it's the ease of use for the customer to see this, I want to put my installation at the very bottom, so I'm going to resort that and have that at the very bottom. And now I'm looking directly at the product across the top here, and that's what matters to me most, okay? All right, so there's a couple of other things that we want to note over here. We can see all of our numbers across the side. Usually when I'm reordering or requoting from a project that or something that the customer is traditionally buying routinely, this is a very simple process. I would move on, get the customer to sign it, and then ultimately create an order for it. I also can pull from order history. Okay, so if they've ordered something in the past, I can pull from their order history, add it here again. That's another way of doing it. It can be freeform, it can be inventory, it can be bill of material freeform, whatever that may be. Whatever you did in the past for them, you can end up ordering again very easily. Products and services are going to be my either light inventory or intangibles, okay? Rush charges, installation, any service like project management fees, so on and so forth. You can add that here as well. Again, you can do whatever you want to set these up, and it's just a quick way of adding these services and features that you reuse. This is how we got the installation in from the very beginning, okay? It was taking these services items and putting them on here. I'm not gonna add another one, but you get the idea over here. If I click save and close, it would go ahead and add it, okay? And then, of course, down below, you also have the BOM freeform, which I'll be talking about in another video. Okay, BOM freeform is going to be a product configuration service that we have that allows you to build a product on a back end, let's just say for a product series, and it keeps the parameters available to that series so the user doesn't stray from the pricing mechanics that go along with that particular product. So if there's certain kind of fixtures, certain kind of mounting, certain kind of colors, so on and so forth, that can only be used with a particular product, when you're going ahead and pricing that, you can't stray and start adding things that are irrelevant to that, okay? So to put it in layman's terms, you can't take Android cases and apply them to an iPhone, okay? So if you're selling an iPhone with some parameters that go along with it, the charging cables and so on and so forth, you can only use the Apple products and not that are particular to that iPhone, and not the Android products, okay? So that gives you a good idea of what that's for. So we'll be doing that in another video. All right, so over here, what I want to do is I want to take a look at this particular product and share with you some additional information that has to do with the inventory here. These are bill of material components, okay, that are used to make this particular product. So in the inventory, you can add bill of material that's used to make this finished product. And of course, this is what the vendor would use if you're buying this out to see what's applicable, or the manufacturer portion of your workflow would be using to see what's required. Okay, so for instance, in this case over here, very simply, you can see some parameter information across the top. If you want to present this in a default vertical view for the description, you can do that. If you want to use a horizontal view, you can do that. This is just about saving space or what's more important to you when you're presenting this to the customer within the quote, okay? So I'll just leave it like this to show you the difference between the line items, what they look like. And then of course over here you can see the different products that you have, or the components that you have that go into making up this particular product, okay? So all the way down to the font being used, the corners that are being used. If there's any costs that go along with these, they appear over here and you can make these adjustments along the way. Now, as opposed to making adjustments within the bill of materials themselves, I would again defer to markups in this, that if you want to discount something or mark it up, I would work off of that. So you can see the selling price is listed across the top. We've got our materials and our labor and such. We can also see the labor over here. So if you have any labor workflows that you're going to be using, all you have to do is just take the workflow, select it from your workflow list, and then the labor will be applied, and that is the labor that's being used to build one of these products, and then of course it's multiplied accordingly by the quantity. Okay, so what we're looking at over here, just to be clear, it says unit sale price. Okay, so it's $21 in labor to make one of these guys. All right, the next thing over here is the shop drawings or the production drawings. So if there's any drawings that have to go through the production department or to your vendor, then they're able to be stored and located up here, and you can have several if you want. So if you have different versions of the drawings, you want to show different aspects or exploded views of certain components, then you can have that in here as well, and they'll print with the production drawings. Okay, all right, so you got that there. So I'm just going to save and close, and what we'll do is we'll go back to the line item here. So now you can see the difference. The traditional is a space saver where it's putting it left to right. And then this one over here is when we want to include everything. It's a little bit easier to read, obviously, because it's in a listing format, but at the same time, the trade-off is going to be real estate, okay? All right, a couple of things to note before we move into the order. I'm not going to touch upon a lot of other places over here. I just want to get you straight to the order, but I do have to show you some of the things that we've been talking about. So that gives you some details there. Now, I'm going to go over here to print this. And there's a couple of different print options I have available to me here. So I want to put in my signature. And then of course, I want to include the images. I think that looks really nice to be able to show the client the images that they have available. And then I want to do the product profile, which is a nice touch to adding these quotes over here. Okay, especially if it's a first time. Okay, so it's very, very nice. So what I'm gonna do is I hit print. Now you can see what my quote looks like, and it has a nice, crisp, clear look to the different items, so the customer has no doubt what it is that these items look like from their products that they routinely order or ordering for the first time from a presentation perspective. But what's very nice is that at the bottom I have my totals. Okay, we can see that there's a tax on file. If I had the actual tax exempt number here, it would be included, but there's no tax being charged here in this case, so it explains why. And then down below, the following pages include an exploded view of these products, and when they sign these electronically, they're approving all of these specific products at the same time, so their signatures being stamped everywhere. Okay, so we'll go through that process in a moment. Now we do have some videos on the entire electronic signing process. Okay, so I'm not going to take you through every single step. I invite you to take a look at those on our YouTube channel for the quote approval process. But in this case over here, if I did want to send this electronically, what I would do is I would click send instead of print. And when I click send, typically what I encourage people to do is have a template that they would use that would have to do with see attached quote as an example, and then you want to hit require, check the box here that says required signature and approval. Okay, and when I insert this, it has some information about the quote. You can see here that it includes the customer's name, the contact's name that you're sending this to, some additional information about this and such. I always tell people, let the customer know what the next steps are. This is your opportunity that if you're sending them a quote for review or an invoice for payment, this is your opportunity to basically say, okay, these are the expectations for us to move forward. Okay, so if you want us to move forward with this project, this is what you need to do. If you have payment terms, etc., that they have to abide by, then this is what they have to do when you're sending the invoice and such, okay? All right, I'm gonna click send now. My email is gonna be sent successfully. Where you can find the tracking of this now will be in the quote sent files over here, and you can see here that this quote was sent. It's a pending, or it's waiting approval. Its status is pending. And if you made a mistake on the quote, you can go ahead and expire it, and then basically the link that they get will no longer be accessible. It'll just get to a page that says, sorry, this quote is expired. You can send them another one if you need to. Now, if you want to view what they're going to see, over here what you can do is you can just click on view, and it shows the quote. This is really easy to read, not only on a desktop, but it's also easy to read on a mobile device and also a tablet, okay? So a phone and a tablet. So if they want to sign and approve, again, I won't go through the entire process. They go through this, check out the videos that have to do with the signing process. You'll see that. Very, very nice. And then ultimately, they can sign and approve it, and then you get the approval in the quote, okay? And it would say here whether or not they've downloaded, how many times they've downloaded, and ultimately if they approved it, that approved copy with their signature will be accessible right from here. Let's assume that they did that, okay? Now, one thing to note, if they came back and made some changes along the way, you do have the ability here. You do have the ability to go ahead and create a new version of the quote. It'll archive this version. You can make your changes. You'll always have the original version, but they will fall off your numbers on the listing page, okay? We set those statuses to inactive. Inactive records do not count against totals unless you're actually filtering on inactive records, okay? That way you don't have double ups in your pipeline of how much money you have potentially coming towards you, okay? All right, in this case here, we're done with this, all right? The customer's happy, we're happy. These are the products that they're going to be purchasing from us. This is the quote that they approved. Now we're gonna create the order, okay? By creating the order, a few things happen. Number one, it takes the quote and it makes it one. So when I go back over here to the quote, let's just go over here into my recent activity. I'll open up this quote over here. When I go to the quote and I go to the line items, very important about this is on purpose, they are no longer editable, okay? So you cannot edit these line items any longer. Why? Because they just signed a quote that said this is exactly what they're paying for. So you wanna make sure that if you need to go back and edit these for whatever reasons, you can void the order that you just made, and then you can go back here and edit these. But at this point, any changes made are made in the actual order itself, okay? So we do that with a change order. I'll be talking about that later in the video, okay? So in this case over here, all of the adjustments that we're making, all of this should be fine. I can put in ship dates and so on and so forth here. I need to put in some due dates for my order. They automatically populate based on some parameters I've set up as my settings. But in this case over here, I'm going to just leave this as is, and then I'm going to click save or cancel if I'm not making any changes. And again, it takes me back to a familiar window. This is now what the order looks like. And of course, some of the information across the top is more order specific, but the functions and the features and getting from one point to another is relatively the same, okay? So very, very easy. All right, we're gonna make this part of the demonstration extremely easy. We're not gonna do anything but get this to invoice, okay? So it's important to know that there's two stages for an order to be in. There's an open order, which has just been received, and an open order is classified as an order that's still being worked on, okay? So there's still finalities that have to come through. Maybe a deposit hasn't fully been received. Maybe the customer's still making some selections as far as what it is that they're choosing for the specifics of these particular products. But if that's the case, then we're working in the open order status, okay? Now, once the finalities have been put into place and the order is ready to be fulfilled, and fulfillment could be either putting it into your manufacturing process or buying it out from a vendor, doesn't make a difference. But once the commitments have been made, then we can go ahead and we can process the order. So down below, there's an option here to process an invoice or process the order, okay? If this is just going through a process where it needs to be invoiced immediately, you could use the process in invoice, and that is a feature that needs to be activated. So if you don't see that in your account, there's a setting for that, okay? Because not everybody is doing that or would be using that. In this case, we're gonna stick with process the order, which is the default. And when we do that, what will happen over here is that the order will now change to in progress. Before it used to say open, okay, and now it can change to in progress, okay, so you have access to that. Note that there is a new tab that appeared called Ship and Install, okay? So just so you're aware, I cannot change the status of this manually. I can't change the status of this manually to completed. I can't say this order is completed because it's going to tell me, well, I have items that haven't been shipped yet, so it can't be completed, okay? And that's the protection because this process denotes the invoicing process. It basically, you have to have items that are shipped in order for you to invoice, okay? Now, there are ways you can make invoices elsewhere within the program for a customer, but as it relates to a particular order, it wants to make sure that the customer is going to get their final invoice with these over here. So that's why this happens like this. All right, so it stays in progress. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to Ship and Install, and then Ship and Install over here, what it's going to do is it's going to show me all of the products that I have to be shipped, okay? Now in this case over here, what's going to happen is that I want to ship everything. In the next segment of what we're going to do is we're going to do partial shipments, and we'll show how they can be independently billed or re-merged back together to make one invoice, because sometimes that's important. All right, so over here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say ship all, very straightforward. I'm going to hit process shipment. So what would happen is if I had UPS or FedEx over here is that when I completed the information that was on screen, it would actually hail both those companies, depending on who I was using, to come and pick up the package. It would also allow me to print the label directly from Mothernode, so I'm not even having to get into UPS Online to do any of this. It's all done within the program. We have another video on that. Check it out when you get a chance to show you how that works. Tracking numbers are also provided to the orders numbers that are being shipped, the line items. So if you have 10 line items, 5 went one day, 5 went another day, each of those have different tracking numbers. If your customer ever needs more information, you can give that to them. If they call in, you'll have that directly in the orders to review, or you can email it to them, okay? So you have that. So in this case, I'm using neither, and I'm just gonna hit create shipment, okay? All right, in this case over here, now you can see that in my shipping, all of this has been shipped, and down below I've created a packing slip for this, and the packing slip is going to look something like this. There's nothing back ordered. We can see how many shipped, what's in the box, and so on. Okay, so that goes along with that. All right, back over here. The next thing we want to do now is that this is out of the order fulfillment process, and it's ready for the accounting department to pick up. We're talking about order 374. So there's a screen over here now. It's a buffer screen called Ready for Invoicing, okay? And what this does is it shows us in order the most recent orders added to Ready for Invoice, okay? So this is designed for accounting departments to look at and see what they have eligible to be invoiced. This is specifically important and useful for those accounting departments that are geographically challenged. They're not within one location. Let's just say you have multiple offices, accounting's only in one area. So in this case over here, it helps tee up what needs to be done. Now, over here, what you can do is you can see across the top, I have, shipping numbers and so on and so forth. This looks like a good one that's ready to go, okay? So I have the total amount here for the $10,000. I want to make an invoice out of this, and maybe a couple of others. But there's a couple of other things that I want to call to your attention over here that an accounting department can use to see that perhaps something is not ready to be invoiced. So in this case over here, when I look at order 365, in the open POs column, there's an open PO that's available right here. And so this shows me that there's a PO that has not yet been received against this order. So even though it's been shipped and ready to go, that there's still an item that has not been shipped. Okay, now you may have an opportunity where you need to bill this right away, and that's going to be a separate invoice after the fact. You have that flexibility, but again, that over here is ultimately to determine whether or not something is to be shipped. Furthermore, in the open work orders columns, these are items that may not have been installed in the field. Okay, so there's an open work order 51 that has not been completed yet, and that would tell me that the job actually hasn't been completed. The customer has not had that product delivered on site or produced or hung or installed or whatever the terminology is for your business on site. So there's an open work order. So even though this is 100% shipped and completed, that there's still an installation work order that's out. Okay, that's not done yet. That could even be one that's from a vendor that's doing the installation. Okay, third party. So you can see here that you may want to stay away from those. Ultimately, it's up to the accounting department to make that determination when they talk to the people who are in charge of the order and say, hey, is this able to do that? And you can use that note feature that I was showing you earlier back and forth to show you, hey, do we have this? Now, without going into these to see the details, we'll look at that in the next workflow example. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to choose these ones, okay, to create invoices for. So I'm going to say process selected, okay? Before I do that, there is one thing that I want to share on this screen. You can use the automated reports as an accounting person just to basically create reports, saved reports, and have those automatically emailed to you a couple of times a week just to see what you have sitting and ready for invoice. Okay, so you don't have to check the screen all the time. Mothernode can send you reports that say, hey, you've got this much amount of money sitting and ready for invoice, ready to go. Okay, so that's a little tip for you there. All right, so over here I'm going to click on process selected, and now what happens is that it's going to go over here into my invoices, and this is where I would go ahead and invoice my customers, okay? I would say the majority of Mothernode customers do their invoicing directly out of Mothernode for a variety of different reasons, but number one, it doesn't mean that you have to get these into QuickBooks or Xero or whatever it is you're using immediately to do that invoicing. You could do it directly in the application itself within the invoicing module. Furthermore, if any corrections need to be made, it's better to do that within our invoicing module before they sync over, so you're not having to deal with looking at two different invoices and just making sure that everything's clean and clear. So this is the reason why that this is done here. So over here, what I would do is I would open this up, and then you can see that again we have another familiar record. Again, the parameters that change in the tabs are just subtly different. Over here we have, the sent file option again, so when we send this electronically, we can see what was downloaded and so on, how many times it was viewed and whatnot. So you have access to this information here as well. And then back over here, when you go to the invoice list, okay, so we can take a look at the one that we just made here, and then we can see in the invoice detail, this is what the customer will be receiving. So they get an invoice that looks something like this, and once again, you can go ahead and you can send the invoice electronically. Okay, so not repeating that process, I would just use the email template that says please pay. These are the parameters. Thank you very much for your business and so on. If there's a survey, you can link to that and such in that email. All right, one last thing to mention before I start the other workflow is that everything we just did, we can undo from the last invoice all the way down to the bring it back to the quote and just start with a quote and editing things again. You would never do that. But the reason I'm explaining that to you, that you could do that, is because that every step of the way, if you need to go back a step, you can, okay? So that's a possibility that you have. No records are ever deleted from the system, so if somebody deletes by accident, it goes to a trash can and admin can pull that back. You can see some support articles on how to do that at our support site. All right, so the last thing we're gonna wanna do in this example over here is gonna be bring this into our accounting software. All right, so it's gonna be this simple, is that when you go over here and you click on export to accounting, you can choose which of these you want to have exported to accounting, and then over here you click export selected, and then what will happen is that it will sync that to your QuickBooks or your Xero, whatever it is that you're going to be using. And I don't have QuickBooks or Xero installed or connected with this account, but it's that simple. Once you do this, it's done. On the QuickBooks side, Xero side, very, very nice. It's something that happens in the background. And then over here in the export history is going to be all of the records that have ever been exported to your various accounting programs, okay? So there are differences in some of those processes of what comes over and what's applicable and such. You can talk with your account manager about the processes and such, but at the same time, at a very high level, this is exactly how it goes through, and it's a very painless and beautiful process, okay? This happens with invoices, purchase orders, and then on smaller plans, quotes, because they don't have orders or invoices, so we take a Mothernode quote and then put it into your accounting program to become an order or an invoice, whatever you choose, okay? So it's going to conclude this workflow. I'm going to take you back and do some more advanced things right to the order in just a moment.